Okay, good morning to everyone. So let's begin this session on a masterclass on ocular surface squamous neoplasia with my talk on role of imaging in the diagnosis of OSSN. So I have no financial interest, and the images used in this presentation are from my alma mater, the LV Prasad Eye Institute. The objectives of my presentation are, firstly, to understand what is the role of imaging modalities in the diagnosis of OSSN, to understand the salient features of OSSN on these, and touch upon the newer imaging modalities as well. So ever since the concept of OSSN was crystallized by Lee and Hurst way back in 1995, a number of imaging modalities have been described, and these include confocal microscopy, optical coherence tomography, ultrasound biomicroscopy, the very interesting OCT angiography, and then the autofluorescence. So as we all know, OSSN presents as a limbal nodule in the interpalpebral location with intrinsic vessels, the hallmark of surface keratin, feeder vessels, and often corneal extension as well. So if the clinical description is so classical, what is the need for imaging? So there are three crystal reasons for the same. And these include, although the nodular and leukoplakic morphology are the most common presentations of OSSN, it can have a variety of presentations mimicking a number of benign disorders such as conjunctivitis, episcleritis, scleritis, name them and you have it. The second important reason is that OSSN can also occur in compromised ocular surfaces, such as following chemical injury, corneal scars, in coexistence with microbial keratitis, or in a corneal graft where it is very difficult to pick it up clinically. In addition, there are a number of close mimickers such as pyogenic granuloma, pseudoepitheliomatous hyperplasia, and any lesion with speckles of keratin can also look like OSSN. So now how do we know based on clinical diagnosis which is OSSN and which is not when so many look similar? So all of us are familiar with this adage that when in doubt, you cut it out. However, here we have the luxury of performing an imaging and obtaining an optical non-invasive biopsy. Moving on to my next presentation, let's look at the next objective. Let's look at the salient features of OSSN. Confocal microscopy was one of the initial modalities described, and it gives a cellular morphology of the lesion, which helps us pick the malignant cells from the normal ones. The neoplastic cells are enlarged irregular cells with bright hyperreflective nuclei as seen in this part of the image. However, its role has been limited because of poor sensitivity and specificity. Let's move to the ASOCT, which is the most commonly employed imaging modality for diagnosis of OSSN. This is a scan of the normal ocular surface, and towards the left is the conjunctival epithelium covered by a layer of tear film. Now, the tear film is hyperreflective and thin, followed by a mildly hyperreflective conjunctival epithelium, and then the subepithelial layers. Now, the corneal end has a more clearer picture with a thin hyperreflective tear film, followed by hyporeflective and thin corneal epithelium. Deep to that is the stroma with the lamellar architecture. Now, limbus is usually where the OSSN arises, and that is our areas of interest. Let's take a look at this clinical picture, which shows a leukoplakic lesion in the nasal quadrant at the limbus. The corresponding scan through the lesion shows epithelial hyperreflectivity. By that, I mean the increased whiteness of the lesion when compared to the normal corneal epithelium, which is next to it. You may also note that as you trace the epithelium towards the right, there is progressive thickening in the epithelium. Now, bringing your attention to this point where the corneal epithelium looked distinctly different from that of the lesion on this side. This is known as the zone of abrupt transition. It's important to remember that not all features are seen in every lesion. In our series of patients, we have seen that epithelial hyperreflectivity is seen in 93% of the OSSN lesions, and 91% show epithelial thickening, and 81% show abrupt transition as well. In other words, all three features were present in 75% of the cases, any two in 23%, which means If you see any two of them, then it is almost seen 98% of the OSSN lesions. Sorry about the animation. Yeah. Another important feature to understand in the interpretation of ASOCT is to know what a shadow effect is. Now, shadow effect is the obscurance of the inner details because of presence of keratin due to the thickness of the lesion or pigmentation. This can affect the visualization of deeper structures, which are the plane of separation and the subepithelium. This yellow dots represent the distinct difference between the epithelium and the subepithelium. Now, as you trace them towards this asterisk, you may note that there is loss of this clear plane of separation. And on histopathology, this corresponds to an island of invasion. Cystoid spaces. Though these were characteristically described in conjunctival nevus, and a pigmented lesion can be confused with one in the absence of keratin. Cystoid spaces in OSSN can be of two types, those which are small and hyporeflective, and these correspond to blood vessels within the lesion. They can also be larger and polygonal with hyperreflective foci within, and these correspond to necrotic cellular material on histopathology. Now, either of these can be seen in invasive and intraepithelial disease. Now that we have understood what is seen in OSSN, let's look at what is not OSSN. So this limbal plaque does look like OSSN, but on ASOCT, you can observe that the subepithelium is the area which is maximally thickened. The epithelium is fairly thin, although with some hyperreflectivity. Pseudoepitheliomatous hyperplasia, which occurs in existing allergies, is also a close mimicker of OSSN. And what we need to look for is this characteristic epithelial dips that correspond to the same on histopathology. Squamous papilloma also can mimic OSSN, but the blood vessels usually show a radiating pattern. Moving on to OCT angiography, although this directly does not add any value to the diagnosis of OSSN, the vascular patterns do seem to have some role in planning the management of the disease. Now, OCT does have its own limitations, which are due to the thickness of the lesion, presence of pigment or keratin as seen in this picture, which obscures the visualization of the deeper aspect of the lesion. Whenever the posterior extent of the lesion cannot be visualized and there is a strong clinical suspicion of invasion, it's important to perform an ultrasound biomicroscopy. Now, this lesion in the ASOCT does not show the deeper details because of backshadowing, whereas the ultrasound biomicroscopy shows invasion into the sclera as well as the ciliary body. Before I conclude, I will touch upon this concept of autofluorescence. When cells undergo a malignant transformation, there are significant alterations in the cell metabolism, which cause variation in the levels of protoporphyrin, NAD, and FAD. And this results in a specific spectral signature that is employed in autofluorescence. In vitro, OSSN has been shown to have a different spectral signature from normal conjunctival epithelium. And in this, by using a technique of false color coding and artificial intelligence, the margins of the lesion could be exactly mapped. This technique has been showed some utility in vivo as well. But its role as of now is limited to diffuse recurrent lesions, which have been on medical management, wherein it helps identify specific foci amongst the diffuse lesion, which could be probably active tumor, thus avoiding a need for a biopsy. To summarize, ASOCT followed by UBM are the most commonly used imaging modalities in the diagnosis of OSSN. Typical features of OSSN on ASOCT are a must know for every ophthalmologist, and these include epithelial hyperreflectivity, thickening, and abrupt transition from normal epithelium. UBM aids in the detection of invasive disease when it extends to sclera or intraocularly. Autofluorescence is an emerging treatment modality which is useful in diffuse and recurrent lesions. Thank you for your patience. Any queries are welcome.